to the SWFL Florida Strong Podcast, brought to you by Conrick PR and Marketing. I'm your host, Connie Ramos-Williams. Joining us today is Erica Castner. She's the founder of Castner Consulting and the host of Voices of Impact podcast. Welcome, Erica.
Hi, Connie. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for quite a long time. You were doing so much in our community and definitely working quite a bit with women in business in Southwest Florida and all over. I'd love for you to start off by telling our guest a little bit about you personally.
Well, thank you for that question. So I've been in the Southwest Florida market now for 16 years, originally from Illinois, and I am married to my husband, Ed. We've been married, I can't believe this, almost 9 years. And I have two beautiful gift daughters from his previous marriage that are now 24 and 21, which is also insane that we have adult kids, but we do. And we're having so much fun right now. We just moved out to Babcock Ranch, and that was about 2 months ago. And so we're loving life out here and keeping busy. And obviously my home office is keeping me in the trenches of things that I'm doing out here, but I have a beautiful view now to do it from. So it's fantastic.
Well, the Babcock Ranch area is definitely beautiful. So congratulations on your new home and community and all that over there.
Thank you.
And I've been keeping up to date a little bit about you and your family on Facebook too. And I know you guys are just doing great things and two beautiful stepdaughters. So
yeah, thank you for that.
Tell us a little bit also about your professional journey, which has been absolutely fascinating. I've known you for probably at least the better part of 20 years now, and from chamber to national business coach and personality. Tell us a little bit about your professional career journey.
Thank you. So I actually started my career over 20 years ago. I know I've been doing this since I was 5 years old. It's hard to believe. But I started in the retail space. So when I lived in Illinois, I was climbing the corporate retail space and working for brands like Victoria's Secret, Lancome Cosmetics. And then when I moved to Southwest Florida, I didn't have a job and I didn't have a network and I didn't have too many friends. And so that quickly changed when I started working with an organization that happened to be a member of a few chambers of commerce, and they were really involved with the community. And so that really fueled my passion for getting behind some of the initiatives that are going on in Southwest Florida. And because of that, I ended up landing an opportunity to work for more recently, before I started my company, the Greater Fort Myers Chamber of Commerce. And that's where you and I, Connie, really got to work in a lot of different committees and a lot of opportunities through that partnership, which was really awesome. But when I started my company in 2015, really setting out to change the business climate, not just locally here in Southwest Florida, but also stretching my wings, if you will, on a statewide level. And now it's interesting because my presence is being felt in 23 countries today, which is wild that this Midwestern girl who didn't really have much of a voice in the Midwest has planted roots here in Southwest Florida. And that those roots have really helped me establish some other connections and partnerships throughout the nation and throughout the globe. So it's really fascinating to see, and I'm sure we'll dive into this today on some level, but I attribute a lot of that to the mentorship from women like you, right? Who have just said, go do it, girl, go make it happen. Like, don't be afraid of, putting yourself out there. And I think that that's what's really attributed to a lot of my success has been through the partnerships here in Southwest Florida.
Well, I remember you back in chamber days, as you said, when we first met at the Greater Fort Myers Chamber, which absolutely love that chamber and all the things they do, connecting people throughout the community. In fact, connecting us together as well. But you are definitely making things happen for them, increasing membership, helping the members connect. You definitely have that dynamic personality and ability to just really put people at ease and see what their needs are and truly help them. So it's been fabulous to see your growth over the last couple decades, actually.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. One of those things that you have been working on in your career journey and has surfaced really just in this last year or two, Know Women. And you have done such a great job. And this was a dream, a vision of yours. You wanted to go ahead and do this. I know we talked about it early on, but you founded Know Women here locally. And there's so many women in business that have gotten involved. Can you tell us a little bit about why you founded Know Women and how women can get involved?
Sure. So actually, Sarah Benkin, who is the founder on a national front, a global front, actually, is the one that created the No Women. And I learned about the initiative when I went to one of their book launch events in the Tampa Bay market back in 2019. And I was so astonished at how much power and visibility and interest there was in that room of women lifting and rising each other within that room. Celebrated women, who are doing rock star things, but they're all coming together to really establish bonds and help each other out. And so when I met Sarah that night, I was like, we have to bring this to Fort Myers. And so we got to work behind the scenes, and we made that announcement in February of 2020. And we all know that 3 weeks later, the entire world decided that it was going to go through a pandemic. And so it was really interesting to see that initiative kind of come to light, because what Sarah has been able to do is take the small initiative from what was once small in her home base of Phoenix. And now the book itself is in 15 cities, with our book is in the Fort Myers market. And the local impact is great because there's all these women from different sectors that get to connect that might not necessarily interact with one another, different ethnicities, different generations. And then what's powerful about it is that they can combine and link arms with other women in other markets. So through the pandemic, it allowed No Women they grew so much because there were so many women in other markets that didn't have a local based presence, but there was that opportunity to really position a lot of friendships and a lot of collaborations through that initiative. So it's been really cool to see it come together in Fort Myers and extend beyond Fort Myers.
Well, you've done a great job. Certainly social media has been just exploding lately with all the photos from your most recent, kind of like, I don't know if it was a networking or membership group.
Comeback event,
Comeback event, thank you, after the pandemic. And one of the things you touched on is when you were about to launch this was pre-pandemic, and everything was moving so smoothly and wonderfully with your dream. And then wham, what we all had to deal with last year. But you continued on. You wouldn't let that deter you from what your end goal was going to be. And you just succeeded in such a tremendous way. Amazing women in your first issue of No Women book, and just really keeping things going. And I think you're off to a great start, in all honesty. I think from what I'm seeing, you're going to have a lot more women want to get involved, because you do have a dynamic base of women in business and all incredible mentors to one another in the community. So.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that is just attributed to, I think, the success of other organizations around me. Other whether it's nonprofits or civic organizations or professional associations, it's really tapping into the greatest gifts that are being brought through those associations, and then just creating an opportunity to where we can connect the dots and really provide opportunities for expansion and growth, and not just in one silo, but doing it across a few different opportunities. So it's really cool.
Well, I'm excited to see your continued journey with No Women, and definitely look forward to getting more involved as the years go by. So
very good. Thank you so much for that.
Another thing that is very impressive, you've been a guest contributor to over 300 podcasts, articles, and conferences, including USA Today, ABC, CBS, Fox 4, Huffington Post. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Can you share, maybe pick, and maybe it's going to be too hard for you to decide, but maybe select one, standout experience, and maybe something that you spoke about at that particular engagement or podcast?
Connie, I do love this question, but it's very hard for me to narrow down what.
I knew it would be.
I'm like, do I single anybody out? I think that at the end of the day, and I don't want to sound like I'm trying to pass this question over, but I think at the end of the day, one of my favorite, some of my favorite experiences, I should say, are those that really lend itself to be more interactive. So I do a lot of podcasts, which in this case, we're pre-recording this right now, in all honesty, right? And so
Absolutely.
It's an opportunity to connect with that guest, and it's really cool to learn more about them in this process. And I know they're interviewing me, and so they're learning more about me, but I think the fascinating thing about what guest contributing has done for me is opened up doors for other partnerships. So it's whether it's been through collaborations like what we're doing today, or what it's doing to really empower other, especially other women or other marginalized communities. I love those types of speaking opportunities because it allows me to really get the human sense of what's going on with their communities. And so anything that has like a live component to it is generally my favorite, because then, then things can just kind of manifest and happen organically in that moment. And it's been fascinating to see what kind of materializes from that. And it's an opportunity. I think anything that's an opportunity, I know you've been on my show way back in the day when I had one of my very first podcasts, and we've got to invite you back onto the Voices of Impact podcast at some point in the juncture. So we'll have to do that. But anything like that, right? Where, there's an opportunity to say, hey, I'm on your platform, but wow, you have this really amazing gift. So how can we circle back and get you onto my platform? Anything like that is super awesome. And I just love that collaborative opportunity for those partnerships and those experiences. So
I think you explained that just right, because the connection, and that's what you feed off of. That's where your adrenaline comes from, obviously, is when you know that you can make that connection and you're interacting and making a difference for the people that you're either speaking with or speaking to. I could see how that could just, fuel you and fill your soul.
And can I just have you indulge me for just one more moment? Because I actually did kind of think of a memorable one as you were saying that, Connie. Do you mind? Is that okay?
Of course.
So I think one of the more memorable ones, and this was actually kind of a funny one, but it was a couple years ago when we could all do in-person events. And I had an opportunity to speak for the Lee County Economic Development Women. They had a women in business. I didn't call it that, but they called it something along those lines. And what was so funny was I was actually a breakout session. And so, they had a keynote and then everybody was going to go into breakout rooms. And what was fascinating about that was there were so many people that were filling my room, and I don't know why, but they were filling my room. And I had two sweet friends that were like, you can't just be in this room where everybody's sitting on the floor. We have to get you back into the main room. And so there's a little bit of chaos and confusion, but they got me back into this main room. And there was probably about 90 women who were fit into this classroom of about maybe 35. And so 90 women all charged to get together and do this one thing. And we made it happen. I mean, within a matter of seconds, it was the most radical thing ever. And I was able to do my presentation with all these women kind of leaving one small space and moving into this big space in record time. So I think that was probably the more memorable one. But I say all that because from the connection aspect, that room was so high vibe that day. And I had so many women coming up and not just talking to me afterwards, but really embracing the whole talk was around leveraging your connections and really building equity in your network, something along those lines. And so they felt it. And I love that kind of embrace, because when they feel it, they usually are going to take action with that content and that information beyond the room. So
I love it. I mean, the fact that those women were drawn to you before you even took the stage, felt comfortable because of your authenticity, coming in and just sharing your space with you, tight quarters before you went up to speak, speaks volumes. So I can't wait to see you in action a little bit more, maybe at one of these upcoming events that you're speaking at.
Well, now that we're going to be doing in-person things again, right?
Now that we finally
Fingers
are.
Crossed.
Yes. Even these podcasts, we launched this over the pandemic. So now we are going to some live podcasting as well. Just because we can now. So it's refreshing to get out and back into the real world again.
And I was talking to somebody last night. It was on a podcasters meet and greet, and the gentleman that coordinated it was in Australia. And then ironically, most of us were in the US. But what was fascinating about that was that one of the women was talking about those elements of connection. And so, you have the written word, which is one level of connection, and then that audio, and then you can see somebody in a digital standpoint. That's another higher level of that. But the highest level of that is really doing that in person, where you can really feel the magnitude of that person's presence. And it's been really cool to know that that's coming back into the fold for a lot of us here in Southwest Florida. Yay, events.
I think for us extroverts, it was really a tough year to keep us away from people and being social out there. So I know a lot of us were inventing different ways to find, find ways to get together. I think we did a few proms over the Zoom. We did a lot of wine tastings and everything we could just to stay connected to people. And I think that served us well to help us get through a tough year. But there's a lot of great things on the horizon this year. Hopefully the pandemic stays gone. Hopefully with all the vaccines, with everything else too, life can start resuming to some sort of normalcy again.
Yes,
and we
hallelujah.
can get out and about. It's already happening, but hopefully we can keep that going well into 2022 and beyond. So
beyond. I love it. Let's do it.
One of the other things I'd love to chat with you about, and I'm in total awe, by the way. I know you and your husband always, athletic, and you always like a good challenge. But I hear you're both training for an upcoming Ironman competition. Can you tell us a little bit about how you balance everything, the training and how you get mentally and physically prepared for the challenge of that magnitude?
So it's funny. I don't think anybody ever wakes up or ever is born and says, I'm going to do an Ironman. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are people like that. I was never one of those people. I always tease myself and I say that I was never the one that was picked first on the sports teams, right? I mean, I was usually like, they were usually looking over me, like when I was the last one there to be picked, and they're like, okay, is somebody else that's not here yet? Like, I mean, that was my athletic ability. And in fact, going back to Connie for Colleen at the Greater Fort Myers Chamber, one of the funniest things was when we'd ever do a chamber activity that required tennis shoes. I didn't own a pair of tennis shoes for the longest time. And so Colleen would always be like, you have to go get tennis shoes. Like wedges don't count. Like that is not going to work for this event. So just to give people some context as to my athletic ability up until about 2013, I started running. As you alluded to, Connie, my husband and I are currently we're currently training for our second Ironman event. We did the half Ironman in oh gosh, what was that? In May, as we're recording this, it's July. So we did that in May, and we're getting ready to do the full 140 mile 0.6 event. And it's insane that we're doing that capability. But I would have to say that going back to your question, the thing that really helps me mentally prepare for that is, number one, I have a spouse that is really on board with that. So that's helpful. And then number two, we work with a team. Big shout out to my Heart and Soul triathlon team and my coaches, Ken and Melissa. They have been very instrumental at helping me get the foundational things I need to make that happen. Because most people, when they attempt a big goal like that, especially if they don't reach out for help, it's real easy to say, I'm not doing very good at this. This is not for me. I don't like the early mornings. I don't like the long trainings. And I think one of the things that's really helped me balance a lot of my feelings around that is knowing that there's somebody waiting for me. There's somebody there that's like, okay, you can do what you want, Erica. Like, you're a big girl, but we're here, we're showing up, we're doing the dang thing. And so I motivated by, okay, somebody else is counting on me to be there on some level. I know it's up to me, but at the end of the day, I have that energy exchange with that community, and I'm getting that accountability, and I'm getting lessons through that process. And I'm hanging out with some rock star people. I mean, we've forged some really amazing friendships through triathlon training, ones that I would have never had if it wasn't for me jumping in and doing this crazy thing. And I'm pretty convinced, I don't even think I would live out in Babcock Ranch. My coach made the decision to move out here first. And I was like, okay, I keep hearing about it, but I might as well check it out. And, I'm like, well, maybe my decision to do triathlons landed me here in Babcock Ranch. So to tie this up and put a bow on it, Connie, I think the biggest thing is, like, for any of us that are trying new things or wanting to explore new things, like, don't just look at the new thing in front of you or that challenge in front of you for the face value of what that is. Think about all the things that kind of transpire from that experience, because it can really be life-changing. It can really be powerful. And I'm living proof that my decision to push myself in triathlons have caused this ripple effect of all these other decisions and experiences that I get to have today. So it's super cool.
Well, I'm in awe, a little envious as well, because there's times where I'm like, I'm ready, I want to do this, I want to do this. But, there's so many things that we can talk ourselves out of pretty quickly. And when you share that story of not even wearing sneakers before, and I'm sure part of that was just because it wasn't much of a fashion statement with sneakers
Right.
and,
Let's be real.
chamber attire, right? But now you're finding, I mean, you can look like a rock star while you're out there training for your marathon too, or the triathlon. But you're amazing. I mean, from the swimming to the running to the biking, and I love that you're doing that together, husband and wife, out there as a team, because that's truly what will help you succeed as well. A lot of times when couples try to do it and it's one versus the other, there's a lot of time away from each other, and
Yeah.
it can wreak havoc a little bit on a relationship. But I love that you're both supporting each other in that. And I have no doubt that you guys are going to succeed at this goal, and you're going to totally kick butt at that triathlon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My swim has been one of my favorite aspects to learn. I just learned how to swim in 2019. And it's also been my Achilles heel, because it's actually technically disqualified me from 2 events, my only 2 registered events, even though I did technically run the entire or get through the entire 70.3 race that we did in May. Technically, I missed my swim cutoff time by 2 minutes and 19 seconds. And so, it's those disappointing moments that I think fuel us to say, okay, what can I do differently? I did the Captiva tribe here locally, and that's what inspired me to think bigger about, because I got pulled from the water then too. I definitely didn't know how to swim back then as well as I do today. So, but I don't let those experiences deter me. I just say, okay, how can I repurpose and recalibrate what I need to do next to make it happen? And the supportive nature around what we do in the triathlon space is pretty powerful as well too. It helps with that, and mindset is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think your story definitely serves to inspire us all that we can do anything that we put our mind to. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy, but we can absolutely overcome those challenges that we put in our own way sometimes, to succeed at something like that, training for a triathlon, or opening and launching a chapter of No Women, or any of the number of things that you have challenged yourself with and achieved in your lifetime so far. So
thank you. And Connie, to that point, I just want to add that for anybody listening to this or watching this today, a lot of it is, we put these or other people have a tendency to put these predetermined beliefs on whether or not we can or can't do something. And so I think if we can just take that ownership and say, I mean, like my story, right? I was never the one that was ever picked on the teams. And I would have people that say, you can't dance, you can't this, you can't swim, I mean, whatever, right? And these are loving people that I, love and admire, but they're telling me I can't do something. And until you get into that belief system of saying, you know what, I'm going to challenge that. And, if you want to, and then you put the hard work behind it, you can truly create that opportunity for you to excel in that area. So, and it isn't going to be pretty, but you have to tune out those other people's opinions and say, you know what am I really meant to do on this planet? Am I here to just live by everybody else's standards, or am I here to fulfill my own?
All right. Did everybody out there hear that? Words of wisdom from Erica Castner here.
Well, thank you.
Let that inspire you and keep you moving forward. You are one of the people that makes Southwest Florida so strong. Tell me what you love about living and working right here in Southwest Florida, and what you think makes Southwest Florida so strong.
So for me personally, Connie, and we've touched on it throughout this chat today, it really boils down to the connectivity. This area is such a transient area. There's a lot of different people from other markets that have claimed Southwest Florida to be their home. And I think one of the most fascinating aspects of it is I used to think that I knew everybody in my hometown. And when I look back on like maybe some milestones or some articles in my hometown paper, I realized that I didn't know people like I do here in Southwest Florida. And I think that Southwest Florida has given me the opportunity to embrace the Southwest Florida community culture. People are kind. They, if you just have to get yourself out there and get to know some of these other facets of Southwest Florida. And going back to why I think it's so strong is if you are immersing yourself into that culture and wanting to get to know the stories of other people, wanting to know how you can help them and support them in their endeavors, like we've both done, Connie. Absolutely. And a lot of the things that we've done respectively with the community projects we've been a part of, it's not about just what's in it for us. It's really what's in it for the greater good. And what's in it for us will eventually get to us if we can focus on what's helping other people, what's going to see them thrive, how can we support them in their journey. So I love Southwest Florida for that reason, because it's afforded me the opportunity to get to know people on a way deeper level than I've ever thought of. And having that connectivity and those access points to connection is really what makes this community strong and awesome.
I would 100% have to agree with you. I mean, I came from a much larger market, Miami, and Miami was wonderful, but the connectivity that we have here in Southwest Florida and the willingness and generosity of people to help each other out, give each other a hand up, is tremendous. You tap on anyone's door and they're willing to talk to you and guide you and help you. It's just wonderful to have here.
Yeah. And I mean, all we have to do is just put ourselves out there, right? I mean, and that's a hard thing for, so it's funny that you mentioned, extroverts earlier in our conversation, because it was a tough time for a lot of extroverts. A lot of people would assume that I'm extrovert by default, and I'm actually a very introverted, person. But it took me a long time to really put myself out there. But once you do, you find those people that are willing to help and support. And so for anybody that's out there who's wanting to get involved with the community, who might be afraid, I don't know if they'll accept me, or I don't know if they'll, I don't know, if you have all these mysteries around that, bypass those thoughts. I'm telling you right now, I'm sure Connie will tell you the same thing. Approach one of us. I mean, heck, between the two of us, we'll get you covered and we'll get you a good start. But it is definitely something to really embrace if you're trying to make a bigger impact in this community. It's just get involved with that.
Good feedback, good advice for the audience out there. If someone wants to get a hold of you, Erica, how can they reach you?
The easiest way to get in touch with me is probably come on over to either my LinkedIn page, which is just simply Erica Castner, or head on over to ericacastner.com, where you can check out the podcast and some of the other ways that you can plug into my community over there.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us today on the Southwest Florida Strong Podcast. I'd look forward to seeing you out and about in the community in the days ahead. And to all of you, thanks for joining us today on the Southwest Florida Strong Podcast. If you'd like to be our guest or view past podcasts, please visit us at conrickpr.com or wherever you view your podcast. Until next time, stay Southwest Florida Strong.